Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Food as Medicine with the Food Bank of Santa Barbara County. I am the host of Food as Medicine. I'm Dr. Lacey Valdivias, and we have a very excellent presentation for you today. I should say my other role, my title at the Food Bank is Director of Community Programs and Education. So this is why Food as Medicine sits under my department. And today we will be talking about plant-centered eating. We have our special guest, Lauren Hogan, whom I'll introduce. Lauren has a bachelor's degree in applied nutrition from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And she has been with us for about a month now, getting to know our community better and what the specific public health nutrition needs are for our community. And so as a result, she has developed this Food as Medicine presentation for you today. She's a registered dietitian nutritionist intern with Illinois State University. And Lauren, without any further ado, let me hand it over to you. Actually, sorry, I forgot one thing. So folks, as you're watching, you may have questions come up that you want to send to Lauren. And so I'll disappear for the presentation, but at the end, I'll come back and I'll read any questions that are in the chat box. So as those questions come up, you can pop them into the chat. And then at the end, I will read those aloud for Lauren to address for you. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And we like to just get this thing started. So Lauren, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lacey. All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Hogan, and this is How to Reduce, Not Restrict with Plant-Centered Eating. All right, so it's great to meet you all. Let me introduce myself. Like Lacey said, I got my Bachelor's of Science in Applied Nutrition from Cal Poly SLO. I'm originally from Campbell, California, so just a few hours north. And right now I'm doing a remote dietetic internship with Illinois State University in hopes to become a registered dietitian next year. So here's our agenda today. We're going to talk about what plant-centered eating is. We're going to look at why eating plants and plant products nutritionally benefit you. We're going to look into some health benefits and dive into why health benefits that plant-centered eating offers, as well as discover 3 myths of plant-centered eating, and then finally learn how to apply plant-centered eating into your lifestyle. So just some quick vocab review before we get started. Nutrients are defined as the substance in food that provide nourishment and energy to our bodies. This can include vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So one of these nutrients is vitamins. So they're substances that are found in foods, such as vitamin A, vitamin C, that our bodies use and need to develop and function. Very similarly, minerals have the same function in the body, except they're found in element form, which you can find on those periodic tables that you see posted in all classrooms, science classrooms growing up. Those can include like calcium and phosphorus. And then animal products, whenever I reference animal products, I mean meat and meat products, poultry products like chicken and eggs, fish, shellfish, and dairy products like milk and cheese. All right, so to get started, I'd love to see if anyone can drop some answers in the chat box. So true or false, plant-centered eating means you cannot eat any animal products. All right, so let's see, I think we have a chat. I see a false answer. Anyone else? Alrighty, so it's false, you're right. Eating more plants with plant foods without eliminating animal products is the primary goal. So plant-centered eating, what is this? In short, it's eating foods that are mainly plants and plant products. It's mainly composed of fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, grains, plant fats, and beans and legumes. Overall, plant-centered eating aims to create a focus on piling your plate with mainly plants and plant products. It does not mean you're restricting any animal product consumption, but possibly only reducing animal product consumption so that the plant products are the main focus on the plate. So if you take a look on the left, we have that graphic. It's the My Plate graphic if you're familiar. You notice that of the 4 food groups that are on the plate, 3 of the 4 are already animal products. So that's what I mean by compiling most of your plate with plant products, about 75 to 80%. So overall, it aims to reduce but not restrict. So just some quick stats just to look at the My Plate in comparison to the average American diet. You notice that looking at the My Plate, that the protein and grains are mostly meeting and or exceeding for their daily intake. However, while fruits, vegetables, and dairy are lower than the recommended amount. We take a look at the bottom at some of the quick stats. About 80% of the US population does not meet our fruit recommendations. For grains, most Americans meet the recommendation for total grain intake as indicated on the graphic above. However, almost 98% fall below the recommendations for whole grains. For vegetables, almost 90% of the US population does not meet the recommendations for vegetables. And for protein, intakes of protein are close to the target amount. However, more than half do not meet the recommendations for nuts, seeds, and soy products, which are other traditional protein options besides meat. So why this need for plant products? Well, the nutrients and components that are within. Fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, grains, and nuts and seeds all provide a wide range of different nutrients and components inside. This can include vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, water, phytochemicals, carbohydrates, and unsaturated fats. So overall, plant products are just filled with various key nutrients and components to support a balanced and healthy lifestyle. So now let's take a deeper look into some of the key nutrients in these components that I've talked about that are very unique to just plant products. Fiber. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate that's not digestible in the human body. This means that when you eat foods that contain fiber, the substances in our body that are traditionally programmed to actually break down food to extract the nutrients for energy are not able to do so with fiber. Fiber is just much too busy to be broken down. It has much to do on its to-do list to schedule in time to do so. Instead, fiber is busy and focuses on keeping the digestive system happy via its two forms, soluble and insoluble fiber. Water-soluble fiber attracts water. It absorbs it during digestion. This helps increase the size and bulk of your stool, where water-insoluble fiber does not attract water. Instead, it focuses on helping normal movement of intestinal contents. In general, fiber's main goal is to keep the digestive system happy and healthy through normalizing bowel movements and maintaining bowel and intestinal health. Additionally, fiber also may help blood sugar management, it may help lower cholesterol levels, and it can also increase your longevity, which is the length that you live. Water. About 60% of the human body is water. Since we lose water throughout the day by performing normal activities like sweating and peeing, having optimal water intake is essential for our human health to replenish. Drinking water can prevent dehydration, which is a condition that can cause unclear thinking, result in mood changes, can cause your body to overheat, and it can lead to constipation and kidney stones. Water overall functions to help us keep a normal temperature, a body temperature. It can help lubricate and cushion our joints like our shoulder joint. It can protect our spinal cord and other sensitive tissues, and as well as it can help rid of waste through urination, perspiration like sweating, and bowel movements. And did you know about 20% of your water comes from the foods that we eat? Water can be found in many different fruits and vegetables, and broths as well, to contribute to your overall daily water intake. Fruits and vegetables that are considerably juicy when you're either biting into it or cutting it open have a very good water content. This can include foods like cucumbers, celery, tomatoes, and watermelon. Antioxidants. There's substances that are found in plant foods that help protect healthy cells from damage caused by free radicals. And what are these free radicals? Well, they're substances in our bodies that actually attack healthy cells. Free radicals are unstable in their structure as seen in the image below. They have an unpaired electron on their chemical shield, and they're actively trying to disrupt all these other healthy cells, trying to beg them to donate an extra electron to be able to have a full matched pair. This kind of reminds me of almost like a kid in a candy shop where 9 out of the 10 of the kids have a lollipop, and that 10th kid really wants one, so he's running around trying to steal everyone else's, causing a lot of chaos. And in cells, when there's a lot of chaos caused, this is called oxidative stress, which further causes damage. Antioxidants, however, help by gifting the free radicals an extra electron so that they're all paired up and there's no more oxidative stress occurring. This donation of an electron further limits the future effects of any disruptive free radicals. Now, there are countless amounts of different substances and food products that can be antioxidants. And some familiar ones that maybe you already know include vitamin C, which can be found in foods that are acidic or sour to taste, and this can include oranges and lemons. Vitamin E as well, food products that are hard to mix with water, such as olive oil or avocado oil, are also another example of antioxidants. A final one is also beta carotene, which is actually a food pigment that gives food a red-orange color. This can include foods like carrots and beets. Now, the last one is phytochemicals. Now, don't be frazzled, but you have most likely eaten chemicals within the last week. And I'm not talking about Lysol or any other chemicals like that, but rather I'm talking about these non-toxic phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are these chemical compounds that are naturally found in plant products that help them fight off bacteria and other viruses. It has now been recognized that when humans actually consume plants with phytochemicals, those phytochemicals in the plants can also help with human health in addition to the plant health as well. It's also important to note that phytochemicals are not technically essential nutrients like other vitamins and minerals, meaning that you don't necessarily need to consume them in order to survive. However, recently they've been found that they're very helpful for your overall health. Phytochemicals are found in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, beans, herbs, seeds, and nuts, almost every plant product. Phytochemicals can be noticed by seeing the color pigment that they give plant food products. Each different color pigment of the rainbow encompasses a different type of plant food products, as well as with different various phytochemicals that you can see listed in the circles. The different phytochemicals have different benefits for our overall health as well. For example, the phytochemicals that are found in the red food products like apples, beets, and strawberries can support prostate and DNA health. Now, there's not enough information that exists to make specific recommendations for phytochemical intake. However, there's no known toxicity level for over-consuming or having too much. So in this case, the more the better. All right, so another chat box question, true or false? Plant-centered eating can help certain diseases and conditions. Open up the chat box. True, I'm seeing lots of trues. That's awesome. Yeah, you're all absolutely right. Like I stated with the phytochemical slides, it's true. There are many health benefits to plant-centered eating. And here's the impact of increasing plant product consumption on diseases and conditions. So first is heart disease. Heart disease is classified as any disease that can affect the heart or blood vessels that are in your heart. So what's the effect of plant-centered eating? Well, it may be associated with a decrease in blood pressure. Blood pressure is a hallmark of heart disease, so any sort of diet or any sort of way of eating that can help blood pressure is very beneficial for overall health. As well as it's associated with a lower risk of death from ischemic heart disease in another study. And ischemic heart disease further leads to heart attacks. So a way to limit the amount of heart attacks and limit this risk of ischemic heart disease is very crucial. Additionally, plant-centered eating and increasing more plants in your diet may help also with the cholesterol level, specifically LDL cholesterol. High cholesterol can increase the risk of heart disease, so having a way of eating that can help decrease the cholesterol levels you're intaking can also decrease the risk of heart disease. The gut. Our second topic will be the gut. The gut is the route that goes from the mouth to the anus, where nutrients from the foods we eat are absorbed. It's this big tube that goes all the way through, and all these micronutrients are trying to absorb the foods that we eat. The microbiome is all the bacteria in our body that help absorb these nutrients. So what is the effect of plant-centered eating? Well, the fiber that comes from plants and grains, we just discussed fiber and how much is in a plant-centered diet. So increasing the fiber helps feed the bacteria in your gut, which is called the microbiota. Plant products are associated with also increasing the diversity of the gut microbiome. So it's not just how many, but also different types and many different species growing more bacteria. So what's the application of this? Well, feeding the bacteria helps more grow, and the more bacteria there is, the healthier your gut. So let's take a look at inflammation. Inflammation is your body's immune system. An example could be arthritis inflammation. So what's the effect of plant-centered eating? Well, a study indicated that an increase in plant consumption showed fewer markers of inflammation. Additionally, oxidative stress was lowered in another study when the people in the study were consuming more plant products. Now, oxidative stress is an imbalance in the body that can lead to tissue damage, the tissues that are on our muscles, which can then lead to inflammation. So having a way to reduce this oxidative stress reduces the amount of tissue damage, and then it can reduce inflammation overall. And decreased inflammation means less effects and less side effects for people with diseases like arthritis, meaning less joint and muscle pains. Type 2 diabetes. If you're unfamiliar, type 2 diabetes is a chronic condition that affects how the body handles the sugar found in the blood. Now, so what's the effect of eating more plant-centered? Well, lots of plant foods have a low glycemic index. And although we'll be discussing what glycemic index is in the next few slides, just for right now, it's important to know that the lower your glycemic index is for a food product, the lower the rise of blood sugar. And high blood sugar is a very hallmark of type 2 diabetes, so having a way of eating that can really reduce that blood sugar is very crucial for overall health. Additionally, plant-centered eating can be effective for decreasing your total cholesterol for people with type 2 diabetes. That was taken from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics website. Additionally, a study showed a reduction in A1C levels. Well, A1C is a type of blood test for blood sugar. And the higher your A1C is, the poorer usually your blood glucose control. So a way to minimize your A1C and lower those levels, it usually means that you have a better blood glucose control, which means you're managing your type 2 diabetes better. And finally, we'll talk about weight management. So what's the effect of plant-centered eating? Well, it can be an effective way to bring about short-term improvements in weight management in adults, as well as part of a multi-component weight management program. Additionally, for long-term effects, it can be effective to bring about longer-term, more than 1 year improvements in weight status amongst most adults. All right, so a quick mental break and chat box question. What is Santa Barbara County's top crop from 2020? The chat box. Does anybody have any ideas? Grapes, strawberries. I'm seeing some answers. Awesome. All right, so the answer is, somebody got it right, strawberries. Well, strawberries have kept the reign as Santa Barbara County's top crop for the 2020 crop year. Just some fun facts. All right, so we're gonna go into some myth busting. Now let's take a look into some common misconceptions of plant products. The first myth, if I eat more plant-centered, then I will not get enough protein. This is not true because protein can come from both animal and plant sources. It's important to note that there's two different types of protein as well. There's complete protein and then there's incomplete protein. Complete protein is when a food source contains all these 9 essential amino acids. And you might be wondering, like, what even are these amino acids? Well, they're what make up the protein in our body to help our bodies function. If you take a look on the right, I have an image of, it looks like a snake with a bunch of different dots, but those dots represent those amino acids, and it's making that protein, which is the long image. I like to think of it as like putting a bunch of Legos together. The amino acids are the Legos, and then the finished product is the protein. Well, you need all 9 essential amino acids in your overall diet in order to obtain optimal health. So what are some sources of these complete proteins? Well, it can be found in both animal and plant sources. Animal includes fish, meat, poultry, eggs, and dairy, as well as for some plant products, it can be found in hemp seeds, soybeans, quinoa, and buckwheat. For incomplete protein, it's in the name, it doesn't have all 9 essential amino acids. It's when a food is missing 1 or more of those. You take a look at the graphic on the right, it shows a complete protein and how all 9 are there surrounding. And then at the incomplete protein, you notice that 4 of them are missing and not within that protein. So some plant sources of incomplete proteins include legumes, nuts, seeds, beans, and grains. So what does this all mean? Well, the takeaway is that You should consume a combination of both complete proteins and also a variety of incomplete proteins, because incomplete proteins, each of them have one less essential amino acid than the other. They all don't just not have one essential amino acid. So this will allow for a balanced diet that will include all 9 essential amino acids, because you're eating both complete and incomplete. It will also meet your recommended daily intake of protein because you're eating enough, and will also increase your intake of protein products like nuts and seeds, which has been mentioned earlier in the slides in the quick facts that have been a lot of reduction for over protein intake for US Americans. But this will help by consuming those incomplete proteins. Will cover that with the nuts and seeds. It's also important to look at the comparison of not just the amount of essential amino acids, but also the amount of protein in terms of grams that is in a food product. You take a look at the black beans, it shows that for one serving, it shows 8 grams of protein, and for red meat burger patty, it shows 28 grams of protein. Now notice that the black beans serving is just 35 grams, while the meat patty is actually 151 grams. So if you're looking at it from a gram of food product to a gram of protein point of view, the black beans technically have more protein, because if the bean consumption was increased from the 35 grams to 151 grams, like the burger patty, the beans would actually have 34.5 grams of protein, which is more than the 28 grams. So it's just cool to see the comparison of the amount in terms of the portion size to how much you want to include in your diet. Myth number 2, eating more fruits means I'm eating too many carbohydrates and my blood sugars will be just much too high. So before we look into that, let's see some background on some carbohydrates. So what are carbs? Carbs are essential food nutrients that our body converts into glucose, the energy that our bodies use to function. And the overall goal of carbohydrate digestion is to break down the chains that make up carbs into smaller pieces. The mechanical chewing of our teeth and chemical enzymes from our mouth, pancreas, and small intestines are the tools that help break down the carbohydrates into smaller pieces. You notice that in the graphic on the left-hand side. Once they're broken down, the carbohydrates are absorbed into the bloodstream from the small intestines and then transferred to various places in our body. The blood is almost like a lazy river that you see at like an amusement park, just transporting all of these carbohydrates to very different parts of the body. So it's also important to note that carbohydrates can be classified as both simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates are digested quickly, and they send immediate bursts of glucose energy into the bloodstream. I mean, that's why when you may feel a quick rush of energy after you have a dessert, to only then be followed by a quick fatigue once the energy is used up. Now, simple sugars can be found as both added sugars like sugar cookie or naturally in food products like fruit. The difference between the simple added sugar and the simple natural sugar, though, is that simple sugars found naturally in fruits also have vitamins, minerals, and fiber that the added sugars do not have. For complex carbohydrates, they're digested more slowly than simple carbohydrates are. They move that piece of food you see in the graphic, it moves much slower through the body. It's a lower, more steady release of glucose into the bloodstream. It can be classified into 2 groups as refined complex carbohydrates and unrefined complex carbohydrates. These refined complex carbohydrates, such as white flour and white rice, have been processed, which removes many nutrients and fiber. By contrast, unrefined complex carbohydrates retain many of these vital nutrients and are very rich in fiber, which can help your digestive system work, like we've talked about before. So now there's two tools for determining carbohydrates' effect on the blood sugar levels. The first tool is your glycemic index. So what is this? Well, it's a rank of carbohydrate foods on a scale of 0 to 100 based on how fast and how much they can raise the blood sugar levels after you eat the product. How fast that food can get through your digestive system and can enter the bloodstream, and see how big the effect is of that blood sugar level. So a low glycemic index is when it's digested much slower. It has a gradual rise in blood sugar. You notice that on the right-hand side, the lower line, the yellow one classified as a low GI or low glycemic index. For a high glycemic index, it means that the food product is the carbohydrates digested much faster. It has a faster and even larger spike in blood sugar, such as the added sugars that I talked about earlier. The sugar cookie is shown in the red. Now, the second tool for determining carbohydrates' effect on blood sugar level is the glycemic load. Now, what is glycemic load? Because it sounds very similar to index. Well, the difference is that it looks at the portions. It helps to work out how different size portions of different foods compare with each other in terms of their blood glucose raising effect. It's a rank of carbohydrate instead of on a 0 to 100 scale, instead it's a 0 to 20 plus scale that looks at only digestible carbohydrate. And like I talked about earlier in the fiber slide, is that fiber is non-digestible. So this rank doesn't look at fiber in the total picture. Similar to glycemic index, glycemic load classified as low means that there's a less blood sugar rise, where a high glycemic load is a higher blood sugar rise. And you see that in the image to the right, you see some low food products, medium, and high. So what does that mean from this first myth when I'm talking about fruit? Well, more fruit will not necessarily cause worsened blood sugar, because fruit and most nutrient-dense foods have a low glycemic index and a low glycemic load. It's important to focus on getting both simple and complex carbohydrates from natural, unrefined, and unprocessed sources. And it brings us to our final myth, number 3, plant-centered eating means I will not get certain vitamins and minerals in my diet. So this is not true, because you can get all essential vitamins and minerals. Since there's no restriction to any food products in a plant-centered way of eating, a nutrient-dense plate is attainable with proper balance. Now let's take a deeper look into some of the vitamins and minerals and how they're very unique in different kinds of food products. The first one we're going to look at is vitamin D. So what is vitamin D? Our body needs it in order to maintain strong bones and teeth. Additionally, it can help calcium function in the body too. They work hand in hand together. So when you look at the animal products and plant products that have vitamin D, you notice that egg yolks, salmon, and milk are just some of the products that have vitamin D, where for plant products, only mushrooms is the only known plant product to have vitamin D within it. However, you see that white mushrooms, once they're exposed to UV light or sunlight, they can have a very high amount of vitamin D. So what's the bottom line from this? Consumption of vitamin D is attainable through both plant and animal products in a plant-centered diet. There's an additional variable though of relying on food processors to make sure they expose those white mushrooms to UV light. It's something else to think about when you're selecting food products. And then another thing to know is that sunlight is also a good source of vitamin D. So it's important to get about at least 15 minutes outside a day, maybe some short sleeves, go on a walk, and just get some natural source of vitamin D as well. Iron. Iron is important for blood production. About 70% of your body's iron is found in red blood cells, which are called hemoglobin. Now, hemoglobin is essential for transferring oxygen in your blood from the lungs to all the other tissues in the body. I like to think of hemoglobin as like a train. It's transferring all the oxygen just from the lungs to all the different areas in the body so that your whole body is oxygenated. So the plant products that have iron, the animal products that have iron are beef liver, oysters, and chicken. And plant products also have a lot of iron, like tomatoes, pistachios, and lentils. So what's this important of iron is that there's actually 2 different types. There's a heme iron, and then there's non-heme iron. Animal products actually have both heme and non-heme iron, while plant products have only heme iron. Now, heme iron is less absorbable, meaning it has a lower bioavailability. Means that once you're eating it and digesting it, less is being absorbed to be used in your body for different functions. This is because compounds called phytic acid and tannates, which can be found in tea, that are found naturally in plant food sources, actually can inhibit this non-heme iron absorption. So what does all this information mean, and what's the bottom line? Well, adequate iron intake is attainable through both plant and animal products. Although heme iron is more easily absorbed, non-heme iron can increase in absorption by consuming vitamin C along with it. So even though lentils are made of non-heme iron and are less absorbed in the body, if you consume an orange with it, which is vitamin C, it can also help increase its absorption rate. It's also important to know another fun fact is that calcium can actually inhibit absorption of both non-heme and heme iron. So it's important just overall to know that it's not just about what you are consuming, it's also important to know what you're consuming alongside a food product. For calcium, that we just mentioned it. So our body needs calcium to build and maintain strong bones and teeth. Your heart, muscles, and nerves also need calcium in order to function. So calcium can be found in both animal and plant products, similar to the other nutrients I've talked about, in yogurt, milk, sardines, broccoli, kale, and chia seeds are just some examples. Now you notice that the animal products do have a higher amount in terms of milligrams of calcium when you're consuming one serving. However, they actually have a lower bioavailability and absorption rate, similar to how we talked about heme and non-heme iron. In contrast, plant products, although they have a lower amount in terms of their milligrams, they actually have a higher bioavailability, which means that when you consume a plant product with calcium, more of it most likely will be absorbed in your body. So what does this mean and what's the bottom line? Well, calcium consumption is adequate through both animal and plant products. Because of the balance between the amount in terms of milligrams and the bioavailability, calcium consumption seemingly evens out. So just some important extra notes to know is that the lower the fat content, the higher the absorption rate. So if you have, for example, skim milk or low-fat milk in comparison to a whole milk, the skim milk will have a higher absorption rate. The higher the protein and phosphorus content in a food product, the higher the absorption. So you have a slab of meat and it has a very high protein content and a very good source of phosphorus. It'll have a very good, better absorption rate than a piece of meat that has the opposite. And then finally, plant product bioavailability, or its ability to be absorbed for nutrients, can be lowered with increased oxalic acid, phytic acid, and uronic acid, which are just compounds that are found naturally in plants. Those natural compounds that are found in plants can actually inhibit absorption rate than it originally had for that plant product. And finally, vitamin B12. Our body needs vitamin B12 to help keep your body's blood and nerve cells healthy, and it also helps make DNA. And DNA is the genetic material that makes up all of our cells. You notice that for animal products, vitamin B12 can be found in milk, eggs, tuna, fat-free yogurt, many different products. However, there are no known natural plant products with vitamin B12 unless it's fortified. For example, like oat milk that you can find at Trader Joe's has fortified vitamin B12 in it. So what's the bottom line for this? Well, vitamin B12 consumption can be attainable for animal products and fortified plant products. So how do we apply all this information from the last 30 some odd slides? Well, here are 5 key tips I've composed that can help you if you ever choose to want to be more plant-centered or compose a more plant-centered way of eating. Number 1 is to fill at least 3/4 of your plates with fruits, vegetables, grains, and seeds, plant products. Like I showed earlier, that my plate side, about 75 to 80% is already plant products. So it's just following that guide and making most of your plate a plant product. Experiment with different plant protein options like nuts and seeds. You can maybe decrease the amount of meat just on the plate and also add some cashews just to get another source of the incomplete protein as well. Maybe make half your grains whole grains. Try swapping white bread for whole wheat bread instead in order to get more fiber in your diet. Remember to reduce but not restrict. Do what is best for you in terms of what products you wish to consume. Ultimately, it's your choice. There's no guide to a plant-centered diet. And then food labeled as a plant product is not always healthy. It's always important to check the nutritional facts that's on the back of a box or a bag on the packaging for more information to know what you're consuming in your diet. So this is just a graphic I created that shows some interchangeable items that can maybe help you increase your plant consumption if you ever choose. You notice that it's interchangeable because it doesn't mean you have to get rid of this item from your diet or your way of eating, but rather just it's another way to increase more. For example, if instead of ground beef one night, you wanted to try lentils instead to get more plant consumption in your overall day, totally awesome to do that. But if you want to return back to the beef, it's also your choice. But this is just some interchangeable items that can have similar effects, and they're similar. So what's the bottom line from all this? What's the key takeaways from this presentation? Well, plant-centered eating has many health benefits. However, just simply incorporating more plant products into our eating is great for overall health. Incorporating a plant-centered eating into your life should be more of an enhancement than a burden. It's always important to remember to reduce and not restrict. So I just want to thank you all for attending today, and I'm open to any questions, but I appreciate you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Were there any questions? I don't think I saw any in the chat, but we do have a minute or two that I can give in case people do want to pop a question in there. Lauren, I noticed on one of the slides it was about protein and grains, and I was wondering if grains, like once they're refined, if they still have a similar protein amount to whole grains.
I'm not sure. I know that it talked about in the different websites I was looking at in terms of what they extract. They just mainly focused on the fiber and vitamins and minerals, but they didn't talk much about the macronutrients as well, like protein. So that would be something very interesting to look up to see like how much they are reducing in terms of their protein or even their fat content as well.
And also the phytochemical slide. So do you get any phytochemicals when you eat like a meat product or a dairy product, or is that strictly from plants only?
Just from plants only.
Okay, well, I think that is it, aside from one comment. Great presentation, thank you. And oh, here's one more question, sorry, at the last minute. Did you talk about how much plant items to eat to get 1,200 milligrams of calcium for combating osteoporosis?
Let's see. No, I didn't talk about in terms of how much, but I can share my calcium slide. Let's see if my presentation will go back. There it is. So this is the calcium slide. It talked about in terms of a RDA recommended daily dietary allowance of 100 milligrams, but for the amount that you wanted to consume, I do show a couple of animal products in their milligrams, a yogurt cup, milk that's non-fat, and sardines. So I didn't necessarily talk about how much to consume to be able to consume a certain amount, but you can maybe look at this amount just to see like how much are in certain food products if maybe you want to apply that.
Okay. Anything else in terms of questions? Okay, well, this video was recorded, so I will send this out. Lauren's also put together a follow-up handout that will go out to everyone who registered. And we just want to thank you all so much for attending. And thank you so much, Lauren, for such a great presentation.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate it.
Have a great evening.